unmute myself. And, all right. Peter, did you want to test sharing out your screen before we start?
Sure, I would be happy to do that. Let me decide what screen I'm going to share. It's going to be this one.
That's the hardest part of screen sharing.
Yes, it is going to be. Is that working?
Yep.
Great. I'm going to unshare just for the introduction part, though.
That's fine. I've got a very long intro bio for you.
Oh my.
All 2 sentences.
2 sentences.
All right, well, it's 1:15. I'll wait another minute because we may have more people popping in. And I don't want to start too soon, but we do have everything recorded, so it's not the end of the world if you miss a couple of minutes. Okay, but my stove, I love this conference. I can sit, I don't have to wear shoes, and I can just, go over to my kitchen anytime. So that's kind of a nice feature. But I do think we're ready to start. I'm Kristen Vanderveen, and I'm here to introduce Peter. And Peter, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
It's Bohacek.
Bohacek.
Bohacek, yep.
Okay, I wouldn't have had the right accent. Peter has been a classroom teacher for nearly 20 years at Henry Sibley High School in Mendota Heights, Minnesota, and now he is part of the team that creates Pivot Interactions, but I think you're underselling yourself. Didn't you actually start this from when I was reading up on your site? So, you can say that.
I did.
We're all good with that.
I didn't think it was the most important thing to put on there, so I didn't put that on there. But yes, that's. But I'll back it up a little bit, because I think that the context is important for teachers to know. So yes, I am a teacher. I've been teaching for 20 years, and I was in industry before that. I studied electrical and computer engineering, and then I worked in the electronics industry for 15 years and started a company there. And then decided that I thought that teaching looked like a much better thing for me. And I quit my job and went back to school and got my teaching license. And it was like the best thing I ever did, because I absolutely love teaching. I love science. I like working with high school students. And as I did that, I really started to think about what can we do? What are some options that we can use technology to improve teaching? And what I was fascinated by was this problem, that we kind of silo how we teach. We're either teaching in class where we're largely using word problems or images and symbolic representations of things and mathematical representations, or we're in the lab where we're doing hands-on, and that there always seemed to me to be too much of a disconnect and not any kind of transition between the two. It's like we're in lab or we're not. And I really thought that video could offer a transition, but not video like I was seeing other people doing, not video lectures, not video demonstrations, but video where the students can actually make the same observations and measurements that we would like them to make in the lab. So it's really important that I don't think that video is going to replace lab or should replace lab. Definitely not. But I also think that students' observations and measurements of macroscopic phenomena shouldn't only be limited to the lab, right? There's an awful lot of things we want students to see and experience for themselves and measure and manipulate that we just simply don't have time or can't practically do in the lab. And so Pivot Interactives was started to bridge that, to open up a new way that students could be interacting with phenomena quantitatively and qualitatively without having to have the burden on you and me, the teacher, say like, I got to run and round all this stuff up, and then everybody's got to be there. And so, right. So that's what we started. And I did it for my own students, and it was about 10 years ago. And I started working with a university professor at University of Wisconsin, River Falls. And we decided really what we need to do is, before we go farther, we need to test and make sure this actually works. Like, we don't want to waste our time, our students' time, and ultimately your time, if we don't know that something is happening. So we got funding from National Science Foundation, and we built out our technology more. And then we did a controlled study that was 1 semester long, college students. And what we looked at was models, and students being able to create a mathematical model and also apply a mathematical model, because those are things that I think are really hard to do. So one thing for a student to follow procedures, to verify something. These are a lot of the things that I found my own labs tending towards. And we're like, but what about, can they discover a new connection? Can they do that in the lab? And could they do it using interactive video? So we published the study, and I'll be happy to put the results out there. It's very boring reading, but the bottom line is it worked. Like, there were learning gains that the students had. And the coolest thing from my perspective is that this was a very lab intensive course. And even in the context of intense hands-on learning, when students use Pivot, their learning went up, not content, but their exact same kinds of things, like their ability to do error analysis and to, like I said, discover mathematical patterns. So then we were like, okay, this is really going to work. And so in 2016, I was talking to Dave Vernier. Does everybody know who Dave Vernier? Does anybody know who Dave Vernier is? And Christine Vernier? Yeah, I was talking to Dave, and I showed him this, and he's like, how are you going to keep this going? I said, oh, I'm going to keep working on it and give it away to everybody for free. And he said, and Dave's a nice guy. So he said, I don't think that's a very good idea, because you're going to get tired of giving it away for free, and you're not going to have the money to do what you want to do. And he really strongly encouraged us, Matt and I at this point, to make it a company. So the reason I want to start with that is because the background of this is not that I wanted to, or neither Matt nor I wanted to say, like, I know, let's sell something to teachers. It's a very different route, that it's like, let's build something that works. Let's test it. Let's continue to refine it now. How can we keep this going? And that's the background into which Pivot Interactives came to be, reluctantly selling it, but also feeling like this is the only way we can get it into the hands of teachers. I apologize for a long-winded explanation, so I could finally say the price is $5 per student per year. And so it's the lowest price we can figure out how to do. I know that puts it out of range of some schools, but it's okay with others. So any questions that you have, let's stop there for a second. We have a chat. Can we use the chat? Would you people be comfortable asking?
The chat. Post your questions
Yes,
in the chat. I'll
please.
monitor it, and I can just interrupt you, Peter, when there's a question to ask. That way,
Anytime. Great. And I'll leave the chat open. But so in my own teaching, I don't like to have long uninterrupted periods where I'm talking. And so I would love it if you would either unmute your microphone and just ask a question, or put it in the chat. All right, we have these cool polls. I would like to use a poll. Can we do poll number 9? That's the one that's like, why are you here? And so kind of like, what are you hoping to get out of this?
Right. Now, I just want to point out to everyone in the meeting that the polls go really quickly. There's not a lot of time between when I open the poll and when it closes. So be ready to respond. Okay.
Oh, this is for the whole thing. Okay, great. Yeah. I'm still interested.
That's okay. And why is it not? There we go. Okay.
That's really satisfying to watch.
Yeah. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Our polls are nice. Okay.
Okay.
We've all voted.
Okay, so great.
Okay.
So getting resources and building knowledge. All right, well, we're aligned.
Excellent.
That sounds fantastic.
And we already have a question in the poll or in the chat from Rochelle.
All right.
What level students do you think this is most beneficial for?
Yeah. Okay. So first I want to address the poll, and then Rochelle's question. I forgot that I love to point out to people how funny, interesting, cool this is that you all are teachers and yet you're spending your summer taking these opportunities to improve your teaching. That is so cool that, like, that's why you're here. Like, what are you doing this summer? Oh, I'm going to go to a conference because my goal is to build my own knowledge about my teaching. Like, that says so much about this community of science teachers, and it makes me really happy to be part of it. Rochelle asked what level of students. I think 9 through college, grade 9 through college. I think that the limitation of why you can't go younger than 9 is because we just haven't gotten that far, but we have lots of materials that are absolutely suitable for 9th grade, for a physical science class or a conceptual chemistry class. We've had lots of users that use it for that level. And we're always working on more. material to go out to those levels.
Mhm.
Okay, next question. I want to do one more poll. Can we,
Okay.
because we can say, I need to know, like, how familiar are you with Pivot Interactive? So is that, I think you said we have one that's, are you familiar with poll number 2?
Yep.
And can it be, how familiar are you with Pivot Interactive specifically?
Yes. It doesn't say that, it's just a line. So we'll just have to mentally fill in, are you familiar with Pivot Interactions? Here comes the
Oh, it's
poll.
just a, yeah, okay. Yeah, perfect.
We were trying to make it generic.
Yes, that
Part of
works.
the program in the poll questions. You can't do it during a meeting, it has to be done in advance. And when we don't know what, it's not we're running the meeting for you, so we don't know what your questions are going to be.
This is ideal.
Yeah.
We have a very familiar with.
Oh.
Wow. Is it okay if I ask who that is? If you feel comfortable sharing.
It was me, Tamika.
Oh, great.
I actually spent some time last week doing some of the labs myself, just to kind of figure out how, because we'll be doing MashMe. So, and also I think we're going to be moving away from having students using lab equipment, because I know there's concerns about them sharing stuff. So I was just playing around and actually doing a few of the labs, like some of the earlier ones like density, to kind of get a grip of it myself, to see how well students can navigate it, and actually doing some of the assignments. So I really, really enjoyed it so far.
Oh, that's great. That's super good to hear.
Okay, I'm in the poll.
Right. Okay. Yeah, thanks. So mostly, well, the more people unfamiliar or somewhat unfamiliar. Okay, that's great. So that's a nice balance, but we'll kind of lean towards mostly starting off with some becoming familiar with it. So perfect. Carolyn asked the question, can a school just buy a site license rather than a cost per student? Yes, you can. We just introduced a way to do site licenses now. So Dave Vernier also likes to point out that he answered that question. He told me that we should start a company. And so then I came back to him and said, okay, Dave, we started a company and now we want to work with you. We want to partner with you. And so Vernier is the company that sells Pivot Interactives. They are our distributor. And I'll just put a link in here. So if you decide that this is for you and you want to buy it, that's where you buy it.
What's the cost of a site license?
It depends on the number of, it's not a site license of the kind where it's like, oh, it's not like an all you can eat. It's not like, oh, you pay this much and then you can add as many students. It's a license for your site based on the number of students. It's mostly a way of getting more flexible pricing and like not being tied to a specific number of students. But the price varies from $5 per student. That's the base price for high school. And it goes down to, like, if you get up to the large number of seats, it approaches more like $4 or $4.25. We did not structure the pricing with the idea that we would be able to offer big discounts. It's like, we did the discount. I know that sounds really weird, but we're like, what's the cheapest we can do? $5. And someone's like, but what if we want 10,000 seats? And we're like, well, $5. I mean, that's the price. So we managed to get a little bit of a discount.
Okay.
But it's really between $5 and $4.25. Yeah. And also you can find out exactly what it is at Vernier. If you just type in the number of seats that you want, it'll tell you to the penny what the cost per seat is. Okay. So I think we should try it. I'd like to start off by we'll just do a quick overview. We'll pick some activities. We'll create a class. I will make it so that all of you can sign up for this class. Okay, so now you can see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the Pivot Interactives library. It has all of the activities that we have. I feel like this is a little bit bigger than usual. Just a moment. I know I practice sharing my screen, but no, it's right. It's normal. Okay. Okay, so when you come to Pivot Interactives as a teacher, then this library up here, there are 3 libraries. There's a place where you're going to put your activities. This is our curated library of all of the stuff that we have. And this is the library where teachers who use Pivot Interactives share with each other, the community library. So you're going to probably want to start in the Pivot Interactives library, which is this one. And then you can go over here and you can filter by NGSS or AP, or you can just filter by the subject itself. So we have 68 chemistry activities in the library, and we're basically adding new ones all the time. So this one here is our newest one. It's not quite done. It's pretty neat. And this one actually will spawn into 2 activities before too long. So I am just going to start off by showing you a couple that I think are pretty cool. Does anybody do a this hydrates lab? It's kind of a moles to grams and grams to moles conversion. And the way, what you do is you heat a salt, and then you look at the, yeah, so I see some people that are.
Yeah, it's a classic
Okay,
lab.
it's a classic lab, yes, exactly. So that's what we thought too, and so the chemistry people that we were working with, that's what they told us. And so we're like, okay, so, and we sort of looked at it and said, like, what are some of the things that people have a hard time with this lab? So how can we make it so that this isn't a replacement for that lab, but that does something different and hopefully beneficial? So we start off in this one with just a little bit of some background in case the students aren't familiar with this idea that there's such thing as a hydrate and how you label a hydrate. So they're supposed to read this, and then we put this one simple question. Under some conditions, sodium chloride can form a dihydrate, which would be the molecular formula. So they can say sodium, how about that one? Sodium dihydrate. So they submit their answer and it says, that's not right. So you don't get any points, and you've used one of your 3 submissions. And then it asks this question of the student: is Na the complete molecular formula for sodium chloride? And hopefully that's going to guide them to, and with this one we put 3 submissions so they can try 3 times and still get it right. Okay, stopping for a minute. This is all modifiable. So if you when you get to the end of this lab, you're like, I think this is really cool, but that is not how I'm going to use it. Like, I don't want this part in there. You can just delete this. You can change anything you want. You can add different kinds of questions, delete questions. The only thing you can't edit is what's in the video. That's fixed. That customizability is, I think, critical, because you are talented and creative, and you should be able to use it your way, not our way. Okay, so then we have this description of the apparatus, and I'm just going to scrub along this. I will play it. And so what we did is we started with copper sulfate. So we tear the scale, tamp some copper sulfate into there. I'll just pause right there. So we love to do this. So we had a close-up camera that's aimed right at the heating, so that the students can observe. They want to. They want to look at it and watch what happens. We want them to also to see that there's some cool changes. And we put back on the scale. We go back and forth. I'm just going to scrub forward, and they get to see all of these color. Oh my gosh! Look at it. There's so many chat questions. This is great.
Yeah, I was just going to pause you. It didn't seem like a good time. About edits that can be saved for future use.
Yep. When everything that you edit, yeah. So the answer to both those questions is yes. When you edit, then that will be saved in the My Library up at the top. So what you do is copy a copy of this into your library, and then you go to I want to, and there will be a button here that says edit. Right now it's not in My Library, but if it were, so I'd go add to My Library, and then from My Library I could say edit. And then it's in your library. We never delete, even if your subscription lapses or it's summertime and whatever, unless you tell us, hey, I don't want to use this stuff anymore, I want you to delete it. Other than that, we always save your stuff and your students. So you can go back to past years and say, like, how did my students do on this last year? Okay, so then we start asking questions here, like, we take them through the very basic version of this lab. We're going to heat copper sulfate pentahydrate. and we're going to tell them that they don't know what the penta is. It's copper sulfate N hydrate, and their goal is to find N. I think that's a lot of times the traditional version of this. But here, since we know exactly what the answers are, because this is just a single video, we can just ask them, and they can be like, so they can get instant feedback, and you can too, as they work their way through the basic version of this. They can get them all right because, look, I put 4 out of 4 submissions. Like, the kids get it right no matter, even if they don't, oh, I guessed right the first time. Right? And so you're like, that's great. It's nice feedback for them, but I don't really know if they know anything at this point. I know that they did it. They opened it up. And then we go to the next part. So now we say, okay, we're going to go in a different order. Now we have 3 unknown substances. In each case, we've told you the ratio of moles of water compared to moles of salt. But your job is, can you figure out what the stuff is? So here are 3 substances and multiple trials for each substance. So this way you can kind of break it out and have different students doing different trials. So not everybody's going to get the same answer. Up here, that was only 1 trial, so everybody had the same answer. And then here they get to a little table. So it's going to be one of these. And then unlike the first part, there's no scaffolding at all. They just say, tell us how you're going to do it. Okay, so that's really, I think, neat, because then they get to say, like, if they did this part, they really understood it, then they should be able, in this part, be able to creatively, one step creatively with less hand-holding, use that same idea to answer a different question. So then I'm going to go down here and do one more. Oh, you know what? I think we won't talk about this. I'm going to assign this one. And during the part, because I want you all to have a chance to look at this from the student perspective. And this is really fascinating. I won't say more. When we assign it, you can have a look at it and see what you think. But I highly recommend that you check that part out. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to say, I'm going to check and see if I already have it in my library. Yeah, it's in my library. Okay, great. So I'm going to do one more, which is molecular forces. What? Thank you. IMF. Oh, so it's not in my library. Okay. This one right here, I'm going to add it to my library. And I think I'll let you all look at this one too. And then let's just find one other. Let's do a titrations. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Who said that you already tried it? Oh, which one did you like? Let's put one that you think.
It was a density one. I think it was like density of unknown liquids.
Great. Let's do one of those. Oh, there's some really cool density ones. We have, I love this one too. So they get to do the density of gases, and then they get the option to fill this tank. Unfortunately, I get so excited about this. So first they get to go through and they get to measure the density of all of these gases. And then they are going to be asked, if you had this tank and you had these gases at your disposal, what is one combination of bubbles that you could guarantee the bubble would float? And by combination, we mean you choose one gas for the bubble and one gas for what's in the tank. And so they've just calculated this density up here of all of them. And so then they have to make a prediction. After they make their prediction, they lock their answer, and then they open this one. And now they can actually choose what's in the bubble and what's in the tank. So there's grayed out because you can't choose argon and argon, and you can't choose nitrogen and nitrogen. This is a very dense refrigerant that they could do. So it's really cool because if you do, the bubble gas is carbon dioxide, you can get carbon dioxide bubbles to float if you put them in this gas, and of course sink if you put them in nitrogen gas. And like, it's really neat that it actually works. I want to add to my library, but that's the other one, the density of unknown liquids, is also really cool. to add to my library. The other interesting density one is this density with sugar solutions. Sucrose solution densities is also really cool. Okay, so here's what I'd like to do now. Let's make a class and put some of these assignments in it, and then I'd love to have you all try them and just go in and get a see what it's like from a student's perspective. So under my classes, I'm going to go add a new class, and it's going to be chemistry workshop. And then if you were doing this for real, you have to decide, you can make it so the students pay. That's really there for college, but if you happen to work at a school district where that's allowed, you can make it so the students would have to put a credit card for $5 in there. Or if most likely for high schools, like my school, for example, the school would pay for it. So that's what we mean here. If you're doing a free trial, then it'll instruct you to use the institution pay during your free trial. High school and college, there's no different in content, just price. So since you're a high school teacher, choose the cheaper one, which is high school. Now I have a class, and okay, so this is a piece of information you need, the class key. So I'm gonna put this in the chat. So if you would copy that, but nothing to do with it quite yet. Because there's nothing in here. So before we do, we can see there's no graders. So you can add graders, like let's say you have a learning specialist at your school or a TA if you were in college. You can add other people who will have access to the students' grades that are in here. Maybe your department head or principal wants to see what your students are doing, so you can do that. There are no students yet because we just made this class. So let's just go back now to my library. And before we put these in here, see how it says copy of, copy of. So these are all the ones that we just copied in there, and it's letting us know that these are our own copy of it. So I just want to go in and just do minimal editing. I'm just going to take the words copy of off of there. But here is that editing window that you could use if you wanted to change the wording in these or add or delete questions. Okay, so now I have sucrose solution densities, and I'm just going to go here and say assign, and I'll assign it to the class that we just made. So now I'm going to put the rest of those in there. But why don't you all now go log in? But here's the most important thing. This could really save a lot of time for you in the future. So I'm going to write this in the chat. Wait, where did the chat go? Ah, there it is. So you're going to go to www.pivotinteractives. And then you're going to click join class. And then you're going to use, no, don't use your teacher email. Yes, I can make it a hyperlink. When you make your account, just make up any email. It doesn't have to be a real email, but this is a student account that you're creating right now. You're signing in as a student, and it's going to be much, because you can't have the same email for your teacher and student one. So use your AOL email or your Hotmail email. Use something you'd never use anymore. I am the only one here old enough to have an AOL email. In fact, because we're going to, in a little while, we're going to grade these. So if you don't feel comfortable using any of your real information, you can completely make everything up. But in a little while, when we do the grading, it's going to show whatever you put in there. Probably should have mentioned that sooner, but I just want to make sure that you are comfortable. So as you all go and put your responses in, we will, we're going to look at those when we talk about how grading works. So I'm going to continue to assign activities. And I'll put that hydrates one in as well. Okay, and so now if I go back to my classes and I look at the one that we just made, so now I can see that, look at that, everybody has made their way into this class, and that's great. And if this is a real email, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's nobody used the teacher email, which is awesome. So as a student, as a teacher, now if somebody's in the wrong class, I can drop them. If I wanted to change their password because they forgot it, you can do that. And then I can go back to my classes, and for all of the activities like sucrose solution densities, like I can now see that some people have already started to work on it. They've opened it up and it just at least saved one time. And so I can see that because this doesn't have any auto-scored questions, I can see that nobody has any points yet. But so now what I'd like to do is, like, you can use the chat, you can use your microphone, but does that sound okay? Like, take some time and just go explore from the student standpoint and try them. And I will, if you have other questions, I'm here, you can put them on the chat, or you can just unmute your microphone.
You only put one lab in there?
Pardon?
Did you only put one lab into the class?
No, I put 4. So if you refresh your screen, I think the other ones will pop up. There should, yeah, you should see 4.
Yeah, thank you.
And one of them I forgot. 2 of them I left the. Oh, look, I didn't edit most of them, so I'm going to go edit them right now, because you can edit them even while you're working on them. I can edit. All I'm going to change is the titles. Stuart, what is happening that's preventing you
I'm
from
good. I'm
asking?
good. I refreshed the screen.
Oh, super.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Peter, we can work on any of these, right? Or did
Sure,
you
yeah.
specific?
No, any of them. I think I encourage you to have a look at all 4 of them, because one of them has like the data table and graph, so you can see how the data table and graph works. And it'll be kind of nice, because you'll see what it's going to be like for the students the first time, right? You'll be like, oh, I see this data table and graph, but how do I use that? So yeah, explore. You do whatever you want. Put silly answers in. Put real answers in. But it's nice if you put some answers in so that we can use them during the grading process. Has anybody got questions or anything that just as you're starting to work on any blocks you're running into or questions you have, or is it you doing okay? And we'll take all quiet answers as people are doing okay.
So I have some questions, Peter.
Great.
I don't know, maybe it's just me and I'm multitasking, I'm listening to you, I got noise in the background and stuff like that, but I'm not finding that it's so like user friendly because I'm over here on the density lab with the sucrose, right?
Yes.
And so like, you know, I don't know, I'm clicking on the buttons and I'm not really sure, like, so then I decide, oh, I have to change the name of the column.
Yep.
I have to put the units in. Why do I have two columns? Am I supposed to be doing it twice? I don't know. I'm just kind of like, it doesn't
Okay.
stick out. I would, okay, so if I'm doing this with my Gen Chem class, and this is like my
Yes.
first class lab
Yes.
with them, I
Yes.
would like cookie book instructions initially to
Great.
kind of give them like, okay, you know, measure liquid 1 twice. All right. I can't see the reason why I've got 2 columns there. The kids would be like, why do we have 2 columns? Are we supposed to do
Okay.
it twice?
I understand your question. I understand
You
your
know,
question. So let me give you a couple pieces of information that might be helpful. So first of all, in the cog that you can click on either the data table or the graph, if you click that cog, that little, you know what I mean?
I don't understand what the cog is.
It's like a little gear thing, like a little
Yeah,
toothed
yeah,
wheel.
I got it.
And so let's say you do that for the data table and graph, then you can see, excuse me, for the data table, it'll give you some help instructions that you can use. So one thing, and this is probably more for you than for your students, then
Okay.
you can watch like some quick videos, like this is how I use this. So that's one thing for a first-time user that's helpful. 2, if this was my student's first activity, this sucrose densities one, if I was doing that, I would change it in the following way. So if people are working their way along and they're going, great, you keep going, but I will show you, and I'm going to change it on the one that no, I can't change it on the one that you're working on. If I change it right now, it'll mess people up if they're already going.
Okay, so I see by watching the cog that I should write density units, grams per milliliter, variable D. I think that's what you're saying to me from watching that.
That's what, yeah, that will help. But there's another way too, that because students they're not necessarily going to read those instructions. And so let's say you wanted to do that. So if you want to have a quick look at my screen, I've opened this up in Edit.
Hold on, I got to go back to Zoom. I got too many windows open here. This is my life.
Okay, sorry.
All right. That's okay. Okay, I'm back on your screen.
Okay, so I'm editing this density of sucrose solution, and I'm editing the first section where there's the videos, and then underneath the videos is the data table and graph.
Yeah.
And if I open up the data table and graph, first of all, there are sample responses that as the instructor, you can see what those sample responses are. But then
Correct.
the thing I think what you're talking about that might be nice is down here is the pre-populated values for this table. So then what I would do here is I would say something like mass.
Oh, okay.
I can set the data table up. Anything I write in this column. So then I'm going to say that I want the units to be grams, and I want the variable name for this to be M. And you're absolutely right. The first time the students do it, they're going to want to have this level of scaffolding. But we kind of leave that up to you to decide.
Okay.
If I want it, and you'll see in some cases we have put that stuff in there, and you're gonna be like, no, I want my students to figure it out on their own. But if
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, a density lab would be very easy to do, and it would be it would be one of those first labs that I would definitely want to try, because I do a density lab in the beginning. And if I'm going to buy this for all of my students, which I'm not 100% sure I could, but if I could, then I definitely want to scaffold them. If I'm buying this and using it with my AP students, I don't need any scaffolding. Like they know, because they did labs with me. But, you know, let's say they're coming from, you know, biology, and a chemistry lab is very different from biology.
That's right.
You know, I want this to be asynchronous. Like there's going to be one day when it's going to be completely remote, and that's going to be my lab day. So I want this asynchronous. So I'm going to have to put all those scaffolds in. Okay.
Yep, that's right. Yes, and you can even go so far as to, like, maybe you know that the first mass that you want them to measure, like you can even populate.
Myself to pivot.
Pardon?
I'm sorry.
So and
So
I
the
have.
first one was 101.0, because like my students wouldn't even think about, like they might put down 80.4. They'd be like, oh, okay, that's the mass of the graduated cylinder. You know.
I'll take that right out of my chemistry budget, because I'm looking at it right now at a session, and yeah, what I really love about it is that it's modifiable.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely have to. Yeah, I'd have to do that, because like they're like, which mass do I use? I got 3 masses. I got the mass of
I'm looking at chemistry right now, because that's what
I got the mass of the graduated cylinder. I got the mass of the difference between the graduated cylinder, you know, so like when I do a
Yes.
lab, what I do is I read them the lab. We talk about like, then I do like a demo lab in front of them where I'm like,
Right.
okay, so now you put the, you know, you put the graduated cylinder on, you know, and you weigh it.
And you
then
could do,
mass
yep. So
it,
what
and
you would,
compare and da 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 da.
yep. So what you could do here is you can build that in. So you can say like, before you begin, watch the video until the graduated cylinder is placed on the scale. And then you can have a multiple choice question that says, what does the scale read when the graduated cylinder is there? And you could put 0.4, 500, and you just be like, okay, did they successfully get the video right? So I think that's really helpful, especially with asynchronous, especially with students that haven't used pivot interactives. Just put a couple checkpoint questions in there. And our goal, and we've been actually working very hard on this, is to see if we can get it that the steps have fine enough graduate, where like the green check that comes up when they get it right, to have it be like, oh, I guess I do know, like to encourage them to do it. That's always our goal, is to try to encourage that independence. And I know it's your goal too. All of us try to get our students to think on their own.
See,
Yeah,
I
so
didn't realize when I was looking through it, maybe it's because I got a phone call, but I didn't realize that I needed to link the mass of the, like I was gonna plot those data points, yet I wasn't there. So I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna put then, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I have a question.
In fact, yeah, go for it.
I have a question about this score thing. And like
Yes.
I just ran through the very first thing. Number 1, made the graph, fine. Score 0 out of 10. Like, what is that? What does that got to do with anything? Is there something I should have done? Why do I have a 0?
Yep. So great question. So one thing is that we have in our help, if you're logged in as a student, and actually this is it, from your account right now, it's under Learn More, but we have a whole, and so we're just going to change this later this week. And one of the FAQs is for the students is, why do I not have a score? Because the first time they do it, they're not going to understand that. So we want your students to be able to answer that question for themselves if they're not with you. So if they go where there's going to be, where it says Learn More, it's going to say support, and there's an FAQ, and one of the FAQs is, how come my score is 0? Anyway, the answer is because the graph is not auto-graded. The multiple choice questions are auto-graded, but you as the teacher have to grade the graph. And I'll show you how.
Okay, so that's not clear. The second thing is, says select, number 2, select one of the liquids. Where's the list of liquids? Like, I know there's sucrose solutions. They're different sucrose solutions, like you said, but is there a list of liquids someplace that I'm supposed to be seeing?
Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6?
I just put in a number.
Oh, you click on it.
Click on what? Like
solution number.
Okay, so I'm not seeing that. It just, like I said, finish the first thing. This is now item number 2. It says select one of the liquids. It's
Okay.
I'm supposed to enter something into this field.
All right, sorry, let's see.
It's at the bottom of the video. It's at the left-hand corner of the video. You can pick
Yeah,
which-
but I think she's on part 2.
I
Oh.
am. I'm on number
so
2.
I'm gonna go down and look. I'm gonna look at part. You're on. Okay, so can you see my screen? I just want to make sure I'm on the same activity that you're on.
You
So
gotta
this
go
is
back to
sucrose.
Zoom then. Hold on. I'm going back to Zoom. All right. I'm looking at your screen, I think. Yes, I must be looking at your screen. Yes. All right.
Okay, and my question for you is this the activity that you were working on?
Yes.
Sucrose. Okay.
Yes, it is.
And then the question that you have is for this, select one of the liquids.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. So
That was sneaky for me. I had to
All the
look
way
at
up there. It's
it
all the
was
way
on
up
the
there.
video. I never.
Yeah.
Is the first thing I saw solution 1, like that first thing I went through, that was solution 1?
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay,
And,
cool.
and so you can do that and say, I selected solution 1.
Right.
Here's an advanced tip. We put the instructions, we don't put the instructions in here. So one thing, if you're briefly looking at my screen, we could write right here for number 1 where it says use, we could write click above, and we could put a whole bunch of instructions right here
Yeah.
in between the video and the data table and graph. But we know that once students understand what they're supposed to do, they really are going to want to have these in close proximity. So that's why we always say the instructions are going to be below. I agree. It's a quirk. And you'll see this is, although we've been working on it for 10 years, there still are a lot of things about it that work. And that's, your feedback is really good. But we are expecting that the students are going to jump down to here, and that they have done a pivot interactives before, so that they know that the way you select liquids is here. But I think you're right. I think we should make that more clear, because this is likely to be an early on one.
I would put that, Peter, to keep the video and the data table nearby, put it above the video, that there are multiple solutions. But you know, the whole point of it being modifiable is that each teacher is going to reword it to the comfort zone of their own classes. And some students you may want them to struggle to figure out, well, what does that question mean? You know, we're trying to prepare kids to be adaptable to multiple systems. On the other hand, if I had a lot of special ed kids in my class, you know, there would be a lot more.
Right. You don't want to frustrate them. Yeah, you don't, exactly.
Because the frustration level would get too high. But the fact that it's modifiable is just, well, it's like the original. I mean, I remember when Vernier first came out with this CD of their labs where you could
I remember that too.
You know, instead of printing them, you could modify them, and nobody was doing that. Yeah, nobody was doing that then.
Yeah, and you're right that one of the things we've toyed with is, should we have 4 different versions of this that are each scaffolded to a different level? And I think what we've decided instead, at least for now, is no, we're gonna have 1 or maybe 2 versions, and then you get to decide, like, where do I want to go with this?
Yeah.
And because this one is this is meant to be the one that you would use after you did. And I wonder if there's can I show that? Yeah, so if you go under teacher notes, this is actually be a pretty useful thing. It says this can be used as a follow-up on the activity. Oh, you can't see this because you're logged in as students. So it's meant to be one after they did that density of liquids, more like an assessment.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the beauty of I think the idea that you can customize it to your group, because one group of students might be they just find this very intuitive and they go, and your other section needs a lot of structure, and you can customize it even that way yourself, because you know better what your students are going to need. You're going to find that out pretty quickly. So I think having that flexibility is really important.
That's our intention.
I have read somewhere that, you know, before you assign the students to do this, you should really go through it and try it on your own, so you know what they're looking at and seeing.
The first few times when you confront the data table yourself for the first time, we've generally found that students that click around and figure out most of the data table on their own. And of course, it's going to depend on the level of student, but yeah. But I don't know. I'm interested in more questions, and believe me, every bit of feedback that you're getting is really, really important. And I'm writing things down, and we continue to use the consensus of what teachers are finding to improve this.
Okay, I have a kind of an why did you do it this way? And in your data table, why do you have a title for each column and then separately units and variable? Because wouldn't the title be like mass in grams, and then you're repeating that information? Is the point that these kids you're expecting this to be for kids young enough that they haven't figured that out yet?
Not exactly. We're thinking that mass is the title, grams is the units, and M is the variable.
Oh, okay. You're looking for the letter that you would put in an equation. Okay.
Yes. And if you have a suggestion for what we should label that, we called it variable, and that's not great. And we called it abbreviation, and that didn't make it clear.
I would use symbol.
So yeah, that's the kind of, so like M is the symbol for mass.
But that may be the part of the country, you know.
Right. Because then
When I
people
first-
might be thinking, yeah, that they want the
I
Greek
first went to
letter.
teach in Pittsburgh, and the student came up to me on the first day and said, "What's a gum? I need a gum band." And I'm from New England, and I have no idea what.
That's hilarious.
So the kid goes, you know, they stretch their hands out, and I realize they're asking for a rubber band.
That is really funny. I did not know that.
But I never, you know, it's like I'm trying to be really cool on my very first day of teaching as a youngster, and I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and so that is honestly, that's one that I suspect you're going to get used to having your students say, I don't know what's supposed to go in variable. And you're going to have to tell them the first time, you're going to have to say, oh, you put the letter there that represents that quantity.
Or you could probably build that into the instructions for the table if you really wanted, you know, especially if it were the first time, right?
I think when you go, if you go to data table
Mhm.
help right there, that is one of the, I think that's actually in the very first help article. It says
Oh,
that.
cool.
Yeah.
It's got a little video, and then if you scroll down here, it's kind of the very first place you get to. It shows somebody populating those.
So it's there, but the kids sometimes have to work through it a little bit. For some kids,
Yeah.
they don't need that.
I think I like the idea too of maybe making me think of an ideas for something. So do you want to have people, are there other questions about using it, or would you like to look at the grading? What would be helpful at this point? Are there still things that are confusing or feedback you want to give about how we should make this portion better?
I don't know if you give me another minute or two.
Sure, happy to.
So Peter,
Yes.
I'm making my graph and it's not linear.
Oh no. This is a serious problem. Okay, so but it's actually really cool because here's one of the things that I relied on for remote learning. So you're doing sucrose densities?
Yeah.
Hey,
two of them have the same volume.
do you mind if we if we look at your data on our screen?
Sure.
What's your name?
Rochelle Lerner.
Rochelle. So if we go down, so if anybody who's looking at my screen, I'll just redo it real quickly because boy, oh boy, did I use this past spring a lot. So here I'm in my classes and Rochelle says, I have a question about my work on sucrose density. So I click on that and I open this up and then here's Rochelle's work. So she can be looking at it and working on it at the same time I am. So we're just letting that load and we can go down. But she already told us what happened. That she got the same volume for two different masses. So that's exactly what we'd look and say, like, she got 98 twice. That's most likely a typo. So if we go back to the video and watch, so it looks like I would do is go out to when the volume is 98 for the first time or when the mass is 112, either one of those. So we'll just watch. What liquid are you working with?
Both 3 and 4.
Oh, wait, but 3 and 4, but which one is this the mass for?
Both 3 and 4 have the same volume.
So then you could do it where you call like this volume 3, or so I think maybe if you want to have, if we're going to make a graph, don't we need to make it for one or the other, either liquid 1 or either liquid 3 or liquid 4?
So that's what I was confused about. Are we making a graph for one of them? Or are we making a graph for multiple ones? Like
Probably.
One.
Oh, you can't.
Yeah, and it doesn't
show for more than one at a
No,
time?
you can. Yeah, okay. You can, absolutely. But I think what you'd have to do is then up here you would say go here and say I want to have more than one column. So I could have like,
yeah.
So then I could say mass for liquid 3 and I could call this one mass for liquid 4. And then I could, if you're saying that you want to do them at the same volumes, you could, or you could, but I think you have to have.
I didn't want to do it at the same volume. I was just checking the solutions and I was writing down what they gave me, and they gave me 98 milliliters for solution 3 and 4. Or did I stop at 98 milliliters? I'm confused about that. I stopped at 98
so yes,
milliliters?
That's right. So as you're playing this video, what we're doing is rather than telling the student go to 98 milliliters, we're letting them make that decision. So if they stop the video right here, they can see like so here's my mass and here's my volume.
So
and then if I advance.
So you're making something for what? Okay, see, this is where the scaffolding comes in, because obviously I have no idea what you're trying to do.
Yeah, so the idea is that they're going to be making these measurements of both mass and volume as this thing gets filled.
For one
they're
solution.
making repeated for one solution. That's right. And then you would make a separate data table, a separate set of columns. And I tossed you into the assessment on how to do this before we did the original one. So this one doesn't have any scaffolding of that nature. Yeah, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? I mean, it's what we're hoping that we're providing is like the opportunity for you to build interactive questions around something where students are getting real data.
Right.
But we don't expect, and if I've given you the impression that this is a turnkey thing, I mean, we're not asking the students to learn something easy here, right? This is, and it is intended to bring up questions of, well, how do I know how many data points, or when do I stop it, or do I have to put the data points in order, or all of the questions that you're asking. These are the high-level science learning skills we want our students to learn.
And even if you had scaffolded every piece of direction, you're still going to have kids who say, well, what data points am I supposed to record, and how do I know when to stop, and can I put these all in the same thing? Like,
right.
They're going to get it whether they're doing it in person, and you have scaffolded and modeled everything for them. You're still going to have kids who do that.
Right, but the difference is when they do it and they're in front of you, you can answer the question. When they do it asynchronously and they get stuck like I got stuck, they're going to have to email you and be like, I know something is wrong because I know this should be linear, and I'm like plotting the density of multiple solutions on a density plot when I should be plotting the density of one solution. Okay,
was.
now I see
Yeah.
that. Now my brain is awake and going, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I knew something was wrong when I was looking at the data points, but like my brain was like, I got nothing.
Can
The
you
way
get-
I,
Sorry.
yep.
How
Go ahead.
can
No,
you
no,
get more
please.
than one graph on there at once?
Oh, um, click this.
Click this.
So the
Hold
same
on.
place where you added the
Back
first
to
one.
Zoom. Hold on. Click this, he says. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you able?
Now I'm
certainly
looking
don't
at
need.
your screen. I'm looking at your screen now. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So when you added the first column,
Yeah.
did you make a graph?
I
So
did.
when
I've made two different graphs
Got
for
it. So when
liquid 1 and liquid 3. I would just like to have them both on the same XY axis at the same time.
Yep. So the same place that you added the columns,
Yeah.
first place, you can add.
Oh, yes. I
Yep.
tried to hit that. Is that supposed to do something? Didn't
What
it didn't do
happened when
that.
you
Okay. All right. So
really didn't?
no, it didn't. I'll try again.
What did it do?
It did nothing. I'll try again. Yeah, all right. You double click it maybe? You have to double click it. All right, this will work. Okay.
Right. Peter, do you have like teacher instructions?
Yes. That should not be a double click. I don't know what.
Sorry. Well, I think it was.
Okay. I just don't want to.
Math 1, Math
Yeah.
2. No, I want Math 3. No, I did the wrong thing.
Yes, we have there are all of the questions that you're asking. For example, how do you configure the graph to have more than one column? It's all in the teacher help. Yes.
Peter, I had a question also. Stuart Goldmarsh. Okay. What extent does the teacher have editing capability as far as things other than the video? Like, in other words, let's say I don't want to give these questions at all. I want the students to experiment, and then I want them to figure out everything and what kind of questions they should have, and to try to figure it out.
Right. That's a great question. I will show you. You can. So the short answer is everything. You can change everything except for the video itself, including deleting all of the questions and asking one question, which is figure out something cool to do with this video, which I have activities that I give my students where that is the instruction. And so how you would do that, so here's sucrose solution density. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it. And here's copy of sucrose solution densities, and I'm going to open this up in edit. And we're going to call it sucrose solution densities. You used the word experiment. And so now I can go down here and maybe you want to leave them. Do you think you want to leave them the data table and graph?
Well, what I'm thinking is, if let's say I wanted to do this as an argument-driven inquiry activity, so
Yes.
they already have a format for that. So let them use. I would let them use that format, or I could maybe embed part of that format within this investigation.
Yeah.
And then have them do it.
Yep. So if you just wanted to take things out, like I'm in edit mode and so this is one of the open-ended questions. And if I just hit delete on that, that's going to be gone. Or if I want to change it and say, and replace this text with some portion of the argument-driven inquiry, you have total flexibility to do that, to rearrange sections. And so what you'd be working with when you're working in here is, here are your choices. You can put in notes and instructions. Data.
Sorry. I accidentally muted Peter.
Oh, okay, great.
Was my
No problem. So these are your options for what you can put in. You can upload your own video. Students can upload a video. So this is the kind of the activity building framework. And so you can even put in other web content. Like I've seen teachers use PhET simulations in there. You can upload, or not upload, but embed things like that in here. So it's a pretty open palette for you to do whatever you want.
I also had another question. Does it seamlessly integrate with, let's say, Canvas learning management system, or you'd have to do that separately?
No, yeah, well, depending on what you mean by seamlessly, but you can make it so that you can embed an assignment in Pivot Interactives into your Canvas, and then this students.
Sorry.
No problem. The students can click from Canvas and go into the Pivot Interactives, and then the grade goes from Pivot back to Canvas.
Okay,
So
great.
yes.
Well, one of the questions I have, also, I'm sorry to keep asking questions, but is that one of the issues that my school may have is that they don't want students to log into things. Is it possible that I can embed this within Canvas? I mean, I still would have to pay, for each student, but I could embed this within Canvas, and students don't have to sign on to Pivot. Would that work?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
They have to connect their Canvas account to Pivot once, and then thereafter they can go directly from Canvas into Pivot without logging in.
All right, thank you.
I apologize for my noisy chicken. If one chicken that gets really cranky this time of day, and I don't know why. So sorry about that. I might have to go chase her off the steps. Sorry, be right back.
It does look like it's.
Yes, I was asking the presenter questions while you told me. I was trying to text you. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the gowns for some reason could not be delivered, and they're at the USPS.
What can't be delivered?
The gowns are right there. For some reason, they tried to deliver.
Okay, let's look at the grading. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know your name. Who was asking questions earlier about the graphing, but you said you wanted a couple of minutes. So, and I have to unmute you.
Yes. My name's Carolyn.
Carolyn. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, what questions you said? Do you have a few more questions? I'm going to mute so the chickens
Well,
aren't.
first, I'm wondering is the chicken indoors or is it outside?
I'm outdoors. I'm on a screen porch, and the chicken is there's a little spot for them all down there. I don't know if you can see them, but they're.
I can't see them, but I see where you are now. Makes more sense. All right.
The chicken would like to be inside. If I leave the door open a crack, I'll come into the office, and the chickens will all be sitting in the office saying, "This looks great. We've always wondered what's in here."
Oh my gosh. Anyways, yeah, if we can do grading, that'd be great. I mean,
yeah.
All right, so we're back on my classes, and if we look at sucrose solution densities, the way I usually do this with asynchronous is a flipped lab format. So if we were going to do one of these, like actually this would be a perfect example. In class we would probably look at this and say, let's use class time to populate your data table, to decide what you're going to put in your data table, and maybe take your first measurement. And then we would maybe have a discussion about what did you do. Maybe I would even go into this and find somebody's data table and look at it, right? And say, like, let's see how we, and I'm sorry to, obviously we're not evaluating each other here. But I could look at the data table and say, like, oh, so we can see that this student, like, this is what they put. So the idea would be that the questions that you had, we would answer those in class. And then we would say, for homework, go home and collect all your data. And then tomorrow we'll come back and we'll look at, like, what is this data telling us? How do we interpret, what is the slope of the line? What's the intercept? Some students will have subtracted out the mass of the graduated cylinder, others won't. And they'll have different graphs as a result of that. And they're both cool. it'll be really fun to look at why does the slope not depend on whether you tared the scale or not. So that's one thing you can do, is just kind of do that in advance. So then the next day in class, what I would do is I go back to my classes, and instead of clicking on the title of the activity, I'd probably just go to grade by question over here. So it's along the line of this assignment. There's 3 dots, grade by question. And I'd say, you know what, let's just look at the data table and graph for every student. I'm going to give it a default score of 10, but I could do whatever I want. And I'm going to scroll to the bottom. And now it's just going to show me a scroll of everybody's data table and graph. So there, it's like, look at Tamika.
Nice data, Tamika.
Wow. So we say, Tamika, wow, that looks great. Nice work. In Minnesota, we would say, nice job. Right. And so she's got the whole thing done. And then, oh, look at this one. Okay, this is a really fascinating one. I'm so glad. Look at this. Troubleshooting. What? Does it seem likely to you that the graph would look like that? So you look at this and you're kind of troubleshooting a little bit yourself as a scientist and saying, it almost seems like something changed out here. So and yes, this is in the help. If you click on a data point, it will eliminate that one from the regression. So when I click on this data point to include it in the regression, then we get a fit that doesn't look very good. And if I click here and I take it away, like, her data is perfect. So we say, try clicking your last data point to see how the graph looks. Okay, I know that there are a lot of flaws and problems with pivot trackers, but I never had the ability to do this with my students until I started using this, where I can go to a single student and give them this kind of targeted feedback to help them see, right? And so I can go through this really quickly. Sorry, Stuart, I feel really bad, but we don't have any data in there. We have to give you a 0. But that's how, oh, neither is on. Anyway, you get the idea. You can go through, oh, look, here is somebody with lots of data. And so I can even go in and look, like, here's mass 1. Nice, right? So very quickly I can see who did what. And then when I get to the bottom, I can say, sorry, this is in the way. Oh, this is a cool one. I'll show you what is happening here. We have the ability to include uncertainty. And so the data column itself in this case is mass, but then the uncertainty is also mass. So how we would intend for that to be used, I'm going to use Tamika's here just as a quick demonstration. Let's say that Tamika wanted to include uncertainty. She'd make a column here that says the uncertainty of volume. And it's going to be in milliliters. And let's just say that she just decides that there's going to be an uncertainty of 1 milliliter for all of these. She's like, I'm not sure how close I am, so I'm going to make it an uncertainty of 1. Then when she goes down to volume, she can say, I have a column in which I put, did I not? What am I doing wrong here? Tamika, volume. Oh, I see what's happening. No, I don't. Why is it? It's doing this because I can't configure Tamika's graph while I'm not Tamika. But had she done that, then she would get error bars that are 1 milliliter wide on each one of these. So that's what uncertainty is meant to be used for. And you will find the first time you use it, there will be students who are not sure about that. And so we had an example of that here where there was an uncertainty chosen for a column, I think unintentionally. So this one, so what we could do just to verify that is we could look at this and remove the uncertainty from that one and then see how the graph looks then. And that would just be a way for us to test. And then we would say to that person, I think you don't mean to put uncertainty on that. At any rate, we get to the bottom, we save the whole thing. And now all the students get the feedback for their graph. So that ability to go through one question at a time, or not, it could be more than one. You can put up to 5 questions. So if I wanted to look at their data table and their conclusion, I could do that as well. If I want to do it and not be able to see who the students are while I'm grading. So that grade by question feature is one that I think I use it a ton. And I think a lot of teachers who use Pivot Interactives like it. It's a very fast way to give good feedback. Right, targeted feedback asynchronously. Chicken inside question. See, and now she's quiet, and now I won't hear from her for a while. She just gets really alarmed right this time of day. They're quirky animals. Productive, but quirky. I think the things that I wanted to show you, the basic flow of creating an activity, creating a class, getting a chance to try it, and looking at grading, I've been able to look at those. So I want to see what else I can do that would be of value to you all.
Yeah, because we have about 10 minutes left. So.
And if you feel like everything that you were looking for, you've been answered, then we can wrap up anytime. Or if people want to go and get a snack or get ready for the next session, and other people want to stay and ask the last few questions, that's also fine. Whatever is useful to you.
I think for me, the big part would be just playing with it so that I feel with how it works. It's not something that in an hour and a half, you're going to be expert enough on it to just jump right in. You're going to need to play with it in advance. And then once you know what you're doing, I think it'll be very powerful, but I think you do have to invest that time to make it worthwhile. I
think you're absolutely right.
And
I'm going to put one more resource up. Yes, please.
Kristen and everybody else, that's no different than any lab that you would do, right? You would never do a lab or a demo until you'd done it yourself. And so I think we need to treat these as a teacher
as a brand new activity.
You treat a demo or a lab, do it yourself first.
Right, I agree.
Instead of thinking of it as a worksheet that you might throw on your kids without doing the whole thing first.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think that why and now, chat, I'm not able to get into the chat, but I'm just going to try it again.
Right, I'm definitely seeing that. I think the only problem is that we're trying to reinvent the wheel and everything else we're doing this year. So I kind of wanted something a little cookie cutter, but I can deal. I mean, I don't give a lab every week. So,
well, I mean, Rochelle, you had been talking about doing this with your AP students, generally.
Oh, yeah, but
they're going to have
Kristen, with my AP students, that's not a problem. But I need something for my regular students too.
Well, you could start it with your AP students, and once you know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I only have 6 APs, so that's easy. But I could definitely see where I just asked for permission for the whole chemistry group, because I'd also rather not have like pick and choose here, you know what I'm saying? Kristen, it would be nice to be able to have one thing that I could just unfold to everybody. But
right.
Yeah. I mean, just sometimes it takes me a little while to get up and using it, and I've got like 50 million tech things that I'm trying to, put together too. So it's good. It's all good. It's all good.
Well, Peter, I'm really glad you're able to come today, because I knew about it. My school is actually in the process of getting it for all of our 9th grade students, all of our chemistry students, all of our physics students. And so it's something we're going to be playing with a lot. And I think this really makes it clear. If you're going to use it, you have to do your homework like you would with any other new activity that you're doing or a new teaching style. If you don't just start doing that, you have to prepare yourself. And that's really important.
I think that you've described it right. We hope that we're creating a tool that you can use. It's and I hope that yes, that over time that you're building it to reflect how you like to teach.
Right.
But this feedback that you're telling me is really important. Like, could we do both? Can we have more cookie cutter activities so that you could, have something to start off with? We haven't aimed as much at the students that need that high level of scaffolding. And I think one of the pieces of feedback I'm hearing from you is that would be nice if we had some activities that were targeted at that. And I think we can do that. And so as time goes on, I think like we have a team of people who are still writing content for fall. And I think that that's kind of been our direction is, can we make some that are like surefire, like give it to students and every question the student had is going to be solved.
I think at least in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
especially as I know, as a teacher, I'm trying to adapt to the asynchronous, synchronous model. The kids are trying to adapt to the asynchronous, synchronous model. My philosophy has always been, if I don't have to reinvent the wheel, I really don't want to. So, like I said, for me, density is something I do right in the beginning. If it was cookie cutter, that would be fabulous for me. I don't need everything cookie cutter because once they figure it out, they're good to go. But if I'm going to get 40 emails, then, because the kids, I'm giving it as an asynchronous activity and the kids can't figure it out, then it's too much time and too much investment in my, sense to
frustration, right?
Yes, to do it. I'd rather go to Flynn Scientific where they can watch the videos and they do it, and then they basically work out the worksheet, which is what I did for a lot of labs last year. I used Flynn Scientific, and he had some really good videos. So, I used his flame test video, and I thought it was fab. He basically put all the solutions in, what are the colors, that's what they would be doing in class. So then, generate some information, some tables, explain it, and it was very little, input. Which I'm not saying it's not a bad thing to have them do a lot of input. I'm just saying that I kind of have to weigh how much time and effort it's going to take them and me as a teacher to make sure that it's reasonable and it's useful for me.
Yeah.
I had a question about this. So we can customize all of our own activities. Can we then share them with the other community of Pivot users?
Yes, you
So
can.
what if somebody's already made that lab and your group has gone through it and you vetted it, there's no really bizarre things in it? Is it possible to share that with other people? If someone's already done it, and made that cookie cutter sucrose density lab that you might use as your very first activity to get people started, that might alleviate some of this.
Yes. Right now you can share it with the community library, but then we're also building a feature right now that's going to be out soon where you can make a library of your friends, whether they are at your school or any place else. So then you can make a library and you can put it in the community library, but there's hundreds and hundreds of activities in there. So maybe someone will find it, maybe they won't. You could certainly search around there. But then you also can say like, hey, let's take this group. We all have similar ideas in mind and let's do that ourselves. And then you could
collaborate.
Yeah. So that it'll be called
do that for our AP courses.
Yeah. It'll be called a shared library and it'll just show up in the like probably in another, 2.5 or 3 weeks, you'll just log in one day and where it says my library, Pivot Interactive's library, there'll be a new thing that says shared library and it'll be blank, but then you can add people to it. So and then you can, everybody who you've added to it can like, here's my scaffolded version of sucrose density. Exactly.
Great. So that, I think that really will cover a lot of the question, like, yes, you'll be able to find that if someone's made it and shared it with you.
Well,
you also said something else was going to change. Now I don't remember what it was. It was when I was asking you a question earlier. Was that the thing you were referring to? The community library thing?
Yes, probably. That's because that's the next big thing that's coming up is the community library. But I guess, so Carolyn, the questions that you're asking, and Rochelle, all of these questions, like this is how we are making this better. Right? So like the shared library came from teachers saying, we want better tools for collaborating. And so we have like, this is not going to stay still. If we stay still, we wouldn't have to charge, we probably could charge 50 cents if we were never going to improve it, right? But the whole idea is because you're paying for it, that's giving us the tools to keep making it better. And so like sometimes people, I don't know, I hope people don't worry that they're like insulting my baby. Like the best thing that happens from these conferences where people will say, this part doesn't work and you need to make it better. And I'm like, great, we will. So you'll see the results of what you're asking about will show up over the year, that we're going to continue to just improve it.
I think it was the direction-y thing, right? Like in the learn more pull down menu.
Oh yeah. Well, that's going to be up this week. The student help is going to be much better.
Gonna say student help up there? Okay.
Yeah, it'll say, yes, it'll be a better way. And the teacher help will be better too. That I spent most of last week when I wasn't doing workshops working on, we hired a student that was a graduate of mine, and she's making a whole bunch of videos for students on how to use so that they can like watch little clips.
Yep.
Great. Yeah. And we'll just keep doing that. So that's why this is really, really helpful to me.
I'm just
I hope
going
it
to
is to
jump
you.
in because it is 2:45.
Okay. Thank you.
No, we can go on. I don't have to be anywhere for an hour, but there may be people who want to go to some of their sessions
Please do.
2:45. And so if your goal is to go to one of those 2:45 sessions, you need to leave and head over to those links to those meetings now. And remember, you can go into the NEACT chat. Let me post that link for anyone who's not sure where to go. All the session links with a clickable schedule. I will post that in the chat. I'm in the process of just coming back and doing that. So for anyone who needs it, you can go scroll down to the Monday afternoon schedule and find what you need, and just grab that link if you're going somewhere else. Like I said, I can keep the meeting open for a bit. It's been a really, really good presentation. And Peter, I really appreciate that you came to us and offered to do this workshop. And it's been really
I'm very glad to. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Kristen. I really appreciate you invited me, and thanks to all of you for coming, and good luck this year.
Thank you. And to
Yeah,
you,
this
Tim.
was really helpful. Pivot was one of those things that somebody mentioned to me at the end of school. And it was like, I don't have any brain capacity to think about this now. And now I do, and I will be using it in physics and chemistry.
Fantastic.
The shared thing is great, and I'll tell you where I've already used it. Kahoots now has a school thing, and it's very useful that those people in our department can share a Kahoot, and because it's a pretty small pool, you can find it. So this is going to be exactly the same thing, that we can create a school one, or the island communities near me. We have some really small schools, as you know, could create, a collaborative, or the Northern Cat, a Rustic could create a collaborative, because there's only one teacher who's doing chemistry and physics and maybe biology in the school. So to be able to collaborate.
I'm hoping even that people will put on Facebook, like Kristen will say like, oh, I just created a really cool activity. If you're a Pivot Interactives user, here's my library. Go copy it out of my library, and people will actually use that as a way of
that would be really cool.
We would really love to see that. So it doesn't have to be your school. It could be, anybody who's using.
Right. Well, the different Facebook chemistry groups have been very good about sharing things that they've written. I've seen several recently for Chem Collective, but like when I get a chance to play with this is something I'm going to explore, because my first labs are going to be this. The other question I had for you, Peter.
Yes.
Notice that there are some biology activities.
Bye. Thanks, Sue.
Plans to ramp up the biology labs as well?
Yeah, biology is our biggest push, and we have 4 more that are coming, or 5 more that are coming online, and so we'll have, I think, 25 or so. But the biology labs, like if you look at the hydrate lab that we did, that's an hour's worth of work for a student, right? Or probably less than that. But the biology ones are these massive, like they're so cool. What we're finding from biology teachers is when they go through, it's enough for a whole year, even though it's 25. So I would encourage your biology teachers to look at it right now and say like, so the AP biology teacher who's leading our group, he's like, everything I need as an AP bio teacher is already there.
Okay, because
so it's
evident. I know our bio teacher, she decided not to pursue it for her students for the coming year. partly because she had other resources, but also partly because it looks like from a number thing, you know, you look at how many activities are available for biology and physics, or for chemistry and physics. And then she's like, oh, clearly the bio is a new thing. You know, I don't know how
it
much.
is new. It's new, and it also depends on when she looked, because I think we've put 9 new ones up since the beginning of summer.
Okay.
And so depending on when she looked, but yes, it's never going to be 190 like it is in physics.
Right. No. On the other hand, there, you know, some people do some, you know, she does some labs with her AP Bio students that not all AP Bio teachers do. So she still does, like, she likes to actually do the Winkler method and have them do it out and do the whole experiment, which is
What's the Winkler method?
Based method.
What is it?
AP Bio for a long time. The Winkler method for dissolved oxygen. And because that's how she actually likes to start her year. But it's not one of the common labs, but it does meet the AP Bio, one of the AP Bio requirements, the DO lab. But it's
is that the one where you use Elodia? Using?
No, it's actually a redox titration.
Oh.
So she does it as the first lab with her AP Bio students. So the students who are taking the course as a sophomore have never done a titration. She does it all on a micro scale. It's really cute. They've never done a titration, and meanwhile they're in classes who have had AP Chem with me, and they're like titration gods at this point in their own minds. And so that's always an interesting dichotomy, but that's not the common AP Bio lab for that.
Right.
There are other alternative labs that people aren't necessarily, you know, they're not widely done. It's not like the hydrate lab where almost every chemistry teacher in the country is going to do some version of that.
Right. Yes, that will take time. That will take time, and that's why, again, this teacher community is so important, is because every time I do an APSI for biology teachers, that's one of the things that we ask is what do you want? And so we have kind of our inbox of suggestions. Yeah.
This has been a great session. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for organizing this, inviting me, and just all the work for your whole group. It's great.
I think you found out about the invitation and came to us, didn't you?
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for allowing me to then.
Oh, no, it was great. You know, when we had to make the pivot when we realized in May that it was like, oh, we have to do a virtual. It made the planning a little different.
I like them though. I've noticed that the conferences that I normally go to, like one of the ones that they do for physics teaching, it's called High School Physics Teacher Camp. It's organized by a bunch of teachers, and they did a virtual one. And when they finished it, they realized there's no reason we can't have one of these every 3 months. So now they're doing, it's sort of similar to this, but it's an unconference format.
Right.
And now that they did the whole organizing of it, they're just going to keep running it because, and I was like, so I hope that some good comes out of, like, you know, that it's, well, first of all, easier for you to do next time, right? Now you know how to do one of these.
It's too early to call what we'll be doing with next summer's conference.
Yeah, right.
We'll be doing, Sue, who left the meeting, she's going to be running 3 sessions for us in the fall. She's got the dates for that. And they'll be virtual. It's impossible to say how far out we're going to continue the virtual meeting. So if we need to do it again next year, then we will. Or we, you know, certainly during the fall, it looks like those meetings would be virtual. Well, I can't make predictions for next summer.
No.
We've got a lead on a great location. I can't say anything about it yet because it's too indefinite.
Minnesota?
Well, we are from New England, Peter. In New England, you can do your Minnesota Association of Chemistry teachers. And you can do that in Minnesota, but I think the New England one's probably going to be somewhere in New England.
Thank you for that reminder that probably Minnesota is not on your short or long list of destinations.
But if we have virtual components, we could still continue to have virtual components to whatever we do. It gives us a lot of options.
Do you mind if I ask, where are you?
I'm just outside of Boston, about 20 miles west of Boston, in a small town called Maynard. It's an old mill town.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Well, yes. Well, you have lots of great locations to choose from for your conference. But yeah.
Well, if you go to the website, we actually have a whole list of not all 81, but we have a whole list of the conferences we've held over the past years. So.
Great. Well, very nice to meet you. So thanks again.
Thank you. And I think we're going to end this meeting, Peter. Enjoy your chickens. And, but don't
Thanks,
kiss
and thanks
them.
again.
No kissing the chickens. And
I don't, my daughter does, but I do not.
yeah, the biologist says no.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. All right, everyone. It was a great meeting, and we'll see you at some of our other sessions today.
Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.
You have all the links. You can actually come to any sessions that you want to.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.